guys, so today I am going to be sharing with you my top 10 favorite books/series that I read in 2017. I was going to do top 17 books, but upon looking back on all of my reads, I realized that there weren't a ton of books that I really liked. 2017 was definitely the year of 3-star reads, which I'm hoping to change that in 2018. But yeah, I decided to just do top 10 reads since I couldn't really find that many. Just like last year, I won't be including rereads. Unlike last year, I will be including non-fiction books. I don't know why I excluded them last year, not that I even read any last year anyway, but yeah. I also do want to mention that these are books that I read in 2017. It doesn't necessarily mean that they came out in 2017. In fact, most of them did not. I also put them in order from 10 to 1, but I'm not sure if that's 100% the exact order that I would put them in. But enough about that, let's just get started. Starting at number 10, we have the Dorothy Must Die series by Danielle Page, which includes Dorothy Must Die, The Wicked Will Rise, Yellow Brick War, and The End of Oz. Since I have 10 books and series to go through, I'm going to be really brief with the synopsis. So basically, this is a really twisted version of The Wizard of Oz. Dorothy has gone back to Oz and she's gained a lot of power and now rules Oz very evilly with the Tin Woodsman and the Scarecrow and the Lion as her evil henchmen. It follows a girl called Amy who ends up in Oz and is told that she has to make Oz as it once was and Dorothy must die in the end. I read this series earlier this year, or last year. I still think it's 2017, I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed it. The last 2 books were definitely my favorite in the series, and don't they just look beautiful all together with their little colorful spines? For number 9, I have a series that I don't own, and that is the Naturals series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which includes The Naturals, Killer Instinct, All In, and Bad Blood. This is basically like a YA version of Criminal Minds. I would highly recommend this for anybody who loves not just Criminal Minds, but like any kind of cop show. If you like crime novels or mystery novels, I would totally recommend this series to you. It's super fast-paced. It's really interesting with all the different kinds of like profiling aspects, and it has a super lovable cast of characters, so I would totally recommend this series. In number 8, I have the Lone City trilogy by Amy Ewing, which includes The Jewel, The White Rose, and The Black Key. This is another series that I read from the library, so I don't have physical copies to show you, but it's basically a dystopian trilogy that in this world, basically pretty much all of the people can't have their own children. They found that some of the women in like the poorest district can still have children, so they take them when they are teenagers and they train them and then they auction them off as surrogates to the different houses. So it follows our main character Violet as she is auctioned off to a duchess. Dystopian is one of my favorite genres. I never get tired of it, and I would totally recommend this series to anybody who loves that kind of like classic dystopian. If you love The Selection or The Hunger Games or anything like that, I would totally recommend this to you. I've also heard it compared to The Handmaid's Tale, which I've never read or watched, so I can't really give my input on that comparison, but I hear if you like that, you'll really like this trilogy. Next up, I have the Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo, which includes Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. This duology takes place in the Grisha universe after the events of the Grisha trilogy, which I never read, but I would recommend reading it because I feel like I didn't get quite as much out of this as I would have had I read that trilogy first. So if you do get the chance to read that first, I totally would recommend doing it, but even though I didn't, I still really loved these. It follows a cast of 6 kind of criminal characters. They're very morally gray, and they try to commit this impossible heist. This is definitely like a heist story at its best. I've mentioned in other videos, oh, these are very heavy, I can't hold them like that. I've mentioned in other videos that the plot was very complex to the point where it did kind of go over my head, and my love for this series really lies with the characters. They are some of the greatest characters I have ever read about. They're so awesome and super lovable. You just fall in love with all of them. So if you like books with super lovable characters or a heist story, I would totally recommend this duology to you. Next up, we have All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. This is a contemporary book that is told from the point of view of 2 characters. The first one is Finch, and he is always thinking of different ways that he might die, but every day he wakes up and tries tries to find or manages to find something to keep him alive. The second character we follow is Violet, and she is grieving over the death of her sister, and she's just counting down the days for when she can graduate and get away from this small town. Violet and Finch end up meeting at the top of a bell tower, and they kind of end up saving each other. I absolutely loved this book. It was very surprising for me because I don't normally like these kinds of stories. I'm very new to the whole sort of contemporary genre, and I've just never been a fan of these kind of like not sappy stories, but like you get what I'm saying. But I was actually pleasantly surprised by this book. I found it to be extremely relatable. It broke my heart, it made me laugh, it made me cry, it gave me all the emotions, and I would totally recommend it if you're looking for a good book about mental health. Next up, I have Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. This book, I assume a lot of people kind of know what it's about, so I'm not going to explain the synopsis again because I feel like it's kind of overtold at this point. This is another book that I was kind of shocked to like because it's very similar to the last one, as I said, where I don't really like these kinds of stories. I actually really fell in love with the characters. This is another one that made me laugh, made me cry, broke my heart in the end. It made me very angry, and I just really, really enjoyed this book. Unfortunately, I can't say the same for the sequel, which I DNF'd after like a few chapters. See, at this point, I'm really questioning my order of these books because as I'm thinking back on them, I'm like rearranging how I've just explained them all to you, but I'm just gonna keep doing them in the order that I wrote them down in, but this is really not permanent. Like, I really don't know exactly what order I liked these books in. But the next one that I have is Freaks by Amanda Hawking. This is one of those like carnival circus kind of books. It follows this traveling freak show, but everything about this freak show is completely real. There is a girl who can shoot fire out of her hands. The main character's mom is a necromancer, so she is like the fortune teller as well, but she can actually like tell your fortune and speak to the dead and all that kind of stuff. This is the first and like only carnival book that I've read thus far. I know there are a couple other ones out there that I really want to get to this year, but I really loved this one. I love anything that has to do with carnivals or freak shows or anything like that. So I got really into this book. It's very atmospheric, so you really feel like you're there and you can just see everything, and it's really amazing. Totally recommend this book to anyone who does love these kind of carnival books or really atmospheric books. I feel like this would be great for like the spring or summer. I think it has those kind of vibes to it. Next up, I have The Princess Diarist by Carrie Fisher, which is a memoir about her life, mostly during the filming of the first Star Wars movie. I actually read this book twice in 2017. Once I just read it, and then the second time I listened to the audiobook, which was narrated by Carrie Fisher. I never listen to audiobooks. The only time I ever do is when they're like a memoir or autobiography that's actually narrated by the author. And with this book, like, reading it was amazing, gave it 5 out of 5 stars, but listening to the audiobook and actually hearing her like explain the stories and stuff like that in her own voice was so amazing, and I would totally recommend to listen to the audiobook if you get a chance. And this was another book that made me laugh, it made me cry. I just absolutely loved it. Next book that I have is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This is the first Agatha Christie book that I read, like a proper novel that she wrote. Other than that, I had read like a couple of short stories, but that was about it. This is another book that I assume a lot of people probably know what it's about, but if you don't, it basically follows this group of 10 people who get these letters inviting them to this island, and then when they all get there, they are slowly killed off one by one, and they're trying to figure out who it is that's doing it because it has to be one of them. I mean, this is just a mystery book at its finest. I absolutely adored this book. It had me on the edge of my seat wanting to know who it was. If you're at all a fan of mystery novels, you have to pick this one up because it was just so good. And then the final series that I have to show you, you may be able to guess what it is due to that random void of books over there, and that is The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer, which includes Cinder, Scarlet, Cress, which was my favorite book in the series, so I suppose you could say that this was my like #1 read book in 2017, Winter, and the novellas Stars Above and Fairest, which Fairest was my second favorite book in the whole series, so I suppose you could say that this was my second all-time favorite read of 2017. The series series is very heavy, so I'm only going to hold up the first book while I talk about it. This is another one that I think a lot of people probably know what it's about, but just in case you don't, it's basically like fairy tale retellings, but with a sci-fi twist. So the first book is a retelling of Cinderella, the second one is Little Red Riding Hood, then there's Rapunzel, and then Snow White. If you've been watching my channel for a while though, you may know that I actually read Cinder back in 2016, and I didn't really like it. I gave it like a 3-star rating, and then I reread it in 2017, and I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck was wrong with me last year? This book is amazing. And I gave it 5 stars. I read the whole series, absolutely loved all of them. The characters are just so lovable. Like Cress and Captain Thorn are 2 of my new all-time favorite characters. The story is very light. It doesn't go quite as dark as some fairy tale retellings do, but it still has a lot of depth to it. It's so well written, and as I said, the characters are just super lovable, which is always the best thing in a book or series for me. So yeah, even though I didn't know the exact order of the other books, I am pretty sure that the Lunar Chronicles is my all-time favorite series that I read in 2017. So those were my top 10 favorite reads of this year or last year. I'm so confused. Leave me a comment down below and let me know what some of your favorite reads were of 2017. And yeah, that is all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye! So just like 2016, this is another book that